Hello everyone, yes I know I said that I'd done my top 10, but there's so many games at Essen Spiel. There's over 1,000 games at least on the Board Game Geek list. That what's another 10, 11-ish to be anticipated and expect to be at least somewhat fun. And I thought if you're going, well, maybe 10 more for your list, what's 10 more among friends? So let's jump in. The first on the list is Dwarf Romantic. Now, this is an interesting one from Bretchspiel. It's, at least what I can tell, only in German. Although last time I went a few years ago, they had City Skylines only in German, and obviously that came out in English as well. And Dwarf Romantic, if you don't know, is a video game that you can get on Steam and you can play it. It's all about placing tiles down, making little areas of, in this, like you can see them putting this windmill down, this corn grain area, cornfield sort of bit, making that off, closing that off, maybe trying to get an area of certain size of woodland, tracing these rivers through your map and slowly but surely building out. It's cooperative, which is a little bit differently, and I can't read German all that well, but it looks very much like you are still trying to, in this case, get a 4 or bigger sized cornfield, a river here that is sort of 5 or longer, and it looks pretty nice, to be honest, and it looks like it captures a lot of the look of the video game. And this is Das Bretchspiel, which I believe is just the board game. It looks like, if we can pan across, it's got sort of a lot of different things for you to try and hit, and maybe like that's achievements or whatever, with all these tokens to be like 5 railway long, a village of 4 space. Yeah, it seems like a sort of cooperative experience that's maybe even got some unlocks. I'm not 100% sure, but I want to give it a go. And I'm sure there'll be at least someone that can help you play that, because it looks very much language independent. Anyway, next up there is the third and final Great Facades expansion coming out for Sagrada. Yes, there's Sagrada Legacy coming out, but who needs that when you've got the base game for a lot cheaper? Glory is another expansion, so this is like maybe the 4th expansion, it might even be the 5th, not 100% sure, but the 3rd in the sort of micro Great Facades expansion. I've enjoyed the other 2. It's helped the game get back to the table. I don't play with these expansions for the sort of new players. For the first time getting it to the table with someone, I won't bother. It's just that extra few rules, the special dice to explain or whatever. But once people have played once or twice, they are great at throwing them in and just making, new scoring cards be possible, or just sort of new dice to deal with. And again, this looks like it's coming with different type of dice, more cards that can reward you. So there's pioneer cards to reward the person who is first to achieve an objective. So it's not just like the end game that you're working towards, or even your personal one that no one else is. These are throughout the game you're going to be trying to do them. And I like that in games, because they often make you do something that you shouldn't. Because you're like, if I put this here, I'll get points now. Although maybe that's going to screw up getting every colour in a row or something. So Sagrada, great game, and the expansions so far have been good. So expecting good from Glory. Next up, it is something I didn't expect this game, to be honest. King of Tokyo has been a sort of staple game of any sort of board game CAF, at least that I've seen. I've always seen it on the shelf. I've seen it played in those sort of so many times. It's on my shelf. I enjoy the game. I don't get it played too often now. But a cooperative new game? Again, I did not see this one coming. So you are fighting around. It seems like you're fighting against a sort of the map, this volcano in the middle with bad dice falling out. There's those bad beasts or monsters, Monster Island, that you're trying to take on cooperatively. I really like the idea of this. It sort of takes a game where you're all smashing against each other and you're trying to maybe cheer for them rolling the right dice rather than groaning that they've managed to hit you lots. And there's some cool standees, which again, I'd love minis in this sort of game, but it would mean it's so expensive no one would buy it. But yeah, who knew a couple of years ago this would be a thing? I certainly wouldn't have even predicted it, to be honest, but I would like to try King of Monster Island. Going from one series to one publisher that's normally doing pretty good, Days of Wonder often puts out a solid game. They normally put only out one big game out a year, and this time they're putting some smaller games out still, but Heat Pedal to the Metal is sort of their big headlining game this year. So you're driving around these tracks, and I'm assuming there's all 4 of these included in the box, and you're sort of pushing your luck as you're playing these cards. You've got these heat or overheat cards that go in and come out of your deck and at different times for you to shift up and down and zoom along the racetrack. It seems to me like it's taking the good parts of the bicycle cycling riding game, which I'm struggling to think of the name. It's got the Peloton expansion. Can't think of the name of it, but you might know it if it is. Put it in the comment section below. It looks like it's taken the cards play from that a little bit, tweaked it, made it a race, and well, Days of Wonder don't really put out bad games, so I'm excited to try this. They're never huge, big, sort of brain-burny games or whatever. They're family fun, and I think pushing your luck on a racetrack like in Heat could be a good way to do that. Next up is a game that I know very, very little about, apart from it's got tile placement and it's based on one of the themes that just grabs me, because Zoo Tycoon is a video game that I played when I was much younger. There's now Planet Zoo, which is different. It's not the same series, but you know, when you're building out a zoo. There's also Ark Nova, Bar and Park, New York Zoo if you want board game themes. But that's at least where Zoo Tycoon is coming from in terms of I want to play it because of the video game. It's certainly got a name advantage on some of these others. It's got some very cool meeples as well. There's one thing about New York Zoo that I did like. I didn't like the game too much, but the meeples were good. Now let's hope it's a double win in New York Zoo, Zoo Tycoon, as you're placing, I'm assuming, these tiles to get the animals into your zoo and score lots of points. Again, so many cool meeples, some tracks to do, hopefully point scoring and all that sort of stuff. It looks interesting, and it's one of the ones that I would go and at Essen. This is one of the ones that I would go and play or go and watch a demo of or something to find out what it actually is, because from the name and the look, it's got me interested. Next up, we have a game from AEG called Wormholes. Now, what's interesting about this? First of all, AEG, again, rarely do bad games. They do some that I think are good, that others love. But AEG, normally, fairly solid experiences. And this is a game about networks and deliveries where there's wormholes. I mean, it looks pretty colourful and nice on the table, not necessarily too confusing though, and it looks like all of these sort of numbers are probably the different links and the different wormholes that you can nip about to try and get your networking and your deliveries done. I really like the sound of that. I think it could be very interesting. It could, you could get your routes built up and have some amazing delivery routes or whatever. Again, the components look nice, the game looks attractive, and an interesting concept of like planning your routes and then planning wormholes and stuff to maybe get around a lot easier. I like the concept. It could be awful, but I'd go and demo it at Essen for that reason, to find out. Next up is another game from Days of Wonder, and it's their sort of smaller one. It is the Ticket to Ride San Francisco edition. It's one of their small city versions, London, New York, Amsterdam. This is the next one. It's got those iconic sort of trolley cars. It's a Ticket to Ride game. It's going to play in like 10-15 minutes. It's sort of the one that I would just... I probably wouldn't bother demoing it, to be honest. If it's a cheapish sort of game, I'd go and buy it, put it in the case because it's nice and small, and we can play it in the evening at Essen Spiel, and I'd bring it home and be very happy with it. It's that simple. It's a Ticket to Ride game. Zug. Yeah, I'd get it because it's simple. I know it will be played, and I'm sure a lot of fun. Next up is a game that I have wanted to give a go for a while now. You may or may not have heard of it, depending on how much you're into board games. You've probably heard of the name Dan Hughes, and more importantly, Cora Hughes, of course. Dan, at least, is on the podcasts, Sporadically Bored. He used to be on some others. He's been on the Dice Tower and stuff like that. He's even done a top 5 list on this channel, which you can go and check that one out, of course. But so he is a sort of creator, for want of a better word, and he, with his daughter, over lockdown, developed a game called Cora Quest, and it did, there's Cora, and it did really well, insanely well on crowdfunding, and it's a sort of a dungeon crawl that's light, and, you know, it sounds like you have to make some choices and stuff like that, but it's not, you know, it's not the hardest one in the world. It's for a family audience. I'd want to give it a go to say that I've actually tried this game, because it's been one that I've wanted to play for a while, and that was not a very big picture. But you get loads of these cool tokens and many different monsters, mobs running at you with different heroes to pick. What more could you want? Next up, we have a game from Brain Games. Now, they make a number of games that I really like, Ice Cool being one of them, and there's some other sort of party-ish sort of games, and this is one I think that fits that sort of wheelhouse. Looks like there's 2 versions of this, maybe 2 different colours, which I think, let me just have a look, is, yes, very pretty much what they did with Team 3. There were 2 different colours for that game, and it looks like that's what they've done here with Mission Complete. So let's just read this, because I've half forgotten about it, because this list's been quite long. So it's a cooperative game where the rules of communication change. So you've got to play the right cards at the right time to communicate your mission to win the game. So you've got to play your cards right in a certain way to then be able to give information of how you're going to win the game. That seems at least an interesting concept. As a card game, it won't last too long. It says 25 minutes here. That seems about right for a card game, and it sounds like a unique idea where, and I don't think there is going to be any other pictures than this, you are playing, like, yeah, you play your cards in sort of a certain way to then reveal information. You certainly had to do that to some extent in The Crew. I don't know if this is going to be on that level, but I'd want to go and check it out at Spiel. Next up is a game from PSC Games, and it's in their series of in 20 minutes. So there was Caesar, I can't remember what the other one is. There's 2, there was a World War II, Blitzkrieg, both of them in 20 minutes. Now I haven't played the Blitzkrieg, I think that's the right name. I've definitely played the Caesar one, UK Games Expo, and was really impressed with it, and they showed me the rough ideas at that stage, like almost like a prototype of Dogfight and how it would kind of work. And again, it feels like they've taken what could be a big hour-long game and sort of just shaved off bits, streamlined others, and made it into just a quick game that you can play actually in 20 minutes, but have still felt like you've made choices. This certainly was the case when I played the Caesar game, and I really want to play that one again, to be honest, where you're just drawing from the bag and making a choice. So yeah, they've certainly, with that game, their in 20 minutes idea grabbed me, so I'd want to see how this actually plays out. And a bonus one, because that was 10. A bonus one is Flick Maze. This is a 3D printed real-time dexterity game where it sounds like you're effectively flicking round a maze. There aren't any other pictures, unfortunately. It seems like a bit of a laugh. If you could go and check it out, it seems like you could have maybe, 10-20 minutes of fun with this one, and it might be good, to be honest. I like flicking games, Pitch Car, Ice Call, those sort of style games where you're trying to, you flick too hard, too soft, or whatever, and combining that with, from the logic of it, combining that with a maze or some kind of puzzle, well, you're trying to do that before your opponents. That seems like a great idea to me. Anyway, that was another batch of games for you to check out at Essen Spiel. Let me know from the lists, what have I missed though? Put it in the comment section below so I can go and give it a bit of a Google and other people can check it out at the convention. And until next time, have a great spiel.